Welcome to the chalkboard, my fellow football nerds, for episode number 92 of Chalk Talk, brought to you by the Painted Lines. I'm your host, Shane Half, and you can follow me on Twitter at halfandhalf_TPL. I'm joined tonight by the best co-host in the game. You've heard him on the Tough Cover radio show. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at MarkHenryJr_. Mark, Super Bowl week. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I can't believe how long this week and a half or whatever it's been since the NFC Championship has felt. I was in college the last time the Eagles made the Super Bowl, and maybe I had some other distractions, I'll say, but definitely didn't feel this long in between the NFC Championship against the Vikings and the Patriots Super Bowl. But man, this is excruciating. Get me to Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. It's going to be exciting, but even more earth-shattering than this being a Super Bowl preview show for the Eagles is the fact that the viewers on YouTube, they get to see your face tonight. We've got Mark on camera for the Super Bowl preview show. How about that?
Yeah, it's been a while. I was on Birds of the Round Table, so I was like, all right, let me make sure that I'm in the right spot that I have to be tonight to get to the camera. And it was still was a bit of a journey in the first 10 minutes of Burns of the Round Table, but we're here for Chalk Talk. So that's all that counts.
Yeah, the last time I saw Mark's face, it did not have a beard. So the playoff beard's coming in nice.
Yeah, it's actually at the point where it's like officially very annoying. Like I want to get rid of it, but I'm like, if I shaved today and then the Eagles lost, I'd never forgive myself. So got to keep the playoff beard until Sunday night.
All right. Well, let's dive into it. We've only got one game to cover about. I'm not going to tell you that it won't take an hour because we all know that's probably a lie. We've been here before, but we'll just dive in and see where the show takes us. For the listeners at home, I tweeted this out earlier this week, but I normally have two sections in my notes. Eagles offense versus opponent's defense, and then vice versa. I have 10 sections in my notes for tonight, so I probably won't get through all of them tonight even. I'll probably save a few for one more preview show that'll come out later this week with Johnny Page from BGN, but we're going to get you a bunch of good stats, relevant information here. So, Mark, let's start off, and let's talk Eagles offense against the Chiefs defense. And let's start out talking with the running game. The running game is going to be a big thing here, especially for the Eagles. Per Football Perspective on Twitter tweeted this out, that in 17 games that Jalen Hurts has played this year, the Eagles have rushed for more yards than they have allowed passing yards. And more impressive than that, they have rushed for more yards per carry than they have allowed net yards per passing attempt. And that's just an insane stat to me, and it encapsulates how good this Eagles rushing attack has been all year. And we've talked about that the Eagles are a multifaceted team, and a lot of the other top teams aren't. So Eagles running game, Mark, do you see them having success against the Chiefs? Do you see this being a focal point of the game? What do you expect from the Eagles ground attack?
Yeah, I do. And I think that that's one of the most important matchups of this whole game is the Eagles running game. And obviously you have multiple options. I mean, you have Jalen, obviously, whether that be in short yardage situations, whether that be designed runs, or whether that be improvisationally. And then obviously you've got Miles Gainwell, and maybe you'll even see some Boston Scott. The interesting thing here is KC is not good against the run. I think that the numbers actually show – I think the numbers lie a little bit when you're seeing them as a middle-of-the-road run defense because due to game script, they're up in so many games that people have to throw the ball a lot more than they'd like to against that defense. But I don't think that'll be the case here. I don't think that they'll be up early. So I do think that we will be able to run the ball and kind of play to our pace and control the tempo. And if the Chiefs want to stop the run, then they can do that. The problem with that is they'll have to devote resources to that will greatly affect them when we pass the ball or when we go to play action. So sure, if the Chiefs want to devote resources to stopping the run and making sure we're getting under 4 yards per carry, so be it. But you're going to be leaving Brown or Smith on an island with a rookie, or you'll be leaving Goddard wide open and with a mismatch. So this is the same stuff we've been talking about all year. This is the numbers game that the Eagles offense forces you to play. And it's what makes it such an amazing offense, even though I think I think because Mahomes is so good, it almost feels like people are talking about the Eagles offense like it's a crappy offense. And it's like, well, if it's a high scoring game, the Chiefs win. Well, the Eagles were second in offensive DVOA this year. And the reason is Jalen gives you such a high floor with his legs. Jalen has improved so much as a passer. And obviously, he's improved so much as a passer because he's got two top 15 receivers in the NFL and a top 5 tight end in the NFL alongside of a historic offensive line unit. And these are just the numbers games that, Shane Steichen, Nick Sirianni, and the Eagles offense present to you. And I don't think that the Chiefs defense is any better equipped to deal with that than the Niners defense or the Giants defenses were.
Yeah, we got a comment coming in from Robert on YouTube. Says, looking forward to watching later. I'm at work. Thank you guys. Please don't get fired on account of Chalk Talk. We will be here for you to watch on Archive, but we do appreciate you dropping in. And to your point, Mark, you're exactly right. The Chiefs are 8th in rushing yards allowed this season, but they're 32nd in run stop win rate. And so this is not a team that's good really at stopping the run. It speaks to the game script. And oh, by the way, the Eagles are second in run block win rate. So we're talking a huge mismatch. In addition to that, the Chiefs ran a light box on 47% of their snaps in the regular season. They're up to a 75% light box rate in the playoffs. Now, granted, you face Trevor Lawrence and you face Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts is near that level. Well, he's near the level of a Joe Burrow. Trevor Lawrence, second year, first real year. It's hard to know exactly where we're at with Lawrence, but the thing is, with the Eagles offense, you mentioned the numbers game. Would you like to play a light box and allow the Eagles to run the ball all over you? Be my guest. Would you like to be +1 in the box? The Eagles will still run all over you because you have to account for Jalen Hurts in the running game. +1 in the box is a neutral box for the Eagles. And so if you really want to devote yourself to stacking the box, you're saying, as we, I guess, sort of transition to the passing game here, you're saying that you're comfortable with 3 of your secondary members being rookies and being on an island against Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert even. That's just not a winning formula. And so the Eagles can put you in binds offensively. The Chiefs had 5 rookies play 25% of the snaps on defense in the AFC Championship game. In dime, they were at 4 of their 6 defensive backs were rookies. Now, I believe L'Jarius Sneed is supposed to come back for this game, so that'll take one of those guys off the field. But they had 418 snaps played by rookies in the AFC title game, which is the most in a win this season. 11 of the 53 guys on their roster are rookies. And it's not just one game. If you look at the whole season, like Chiefs rookies have 4,087 snaps from rookies. The Eagles have 989 snaps from rookies played this season. And so it is a defense that, and it's a Super Bowl, they've played all season. It's not like they're rookies in their first game, but there's inexperience there. And you're going up against some stud receivers that really, really good secondaries have had a hard time stopping. So, Mark, talk to me about the Eagles' passing attack against the Chiefs' defense. What do you expect to see there?
Yeah, I think that the 2 X factors that I'll take a look at are one obvious one in A.J. Brown. The Chiefs are 31st in DVOA against number 1 receivers. That I think so. Was it announced today that L'Jarius is definitely playing? Basically, that was.
I think he said he was cleared from concussion protocol,
Yeah.
so I would assume he will play. There's no reason he wouldn't.
So even with that, the 31st in DVOA, Snead played the whole year. So it would have been nice, obviously, to be going against 3 rookies. But even with Snead out there, I think Brown has a mismatch in terms of whoever he's going against size-wise in this Chiefs secondary. And then the other place that I'll look is Kenny Gainwell. The Chiefs have proven to be vulnerable in the passing game to running backs. And they have shown the third down snap breakdown is staggering towards Gainwell. So I think that they will be using Gainwell as part of the game plan in terms of getting the ball to him in space. It feels like they've been using him in the backfield as a running threat a lot more recently than they were before the last 3 games. They haven't used him as much as a receiving threat as maybe I would like. But I think that changes in this game due to the weakness of the Chiefs passing game or passing defense, I should say.
And so the Chiefs, obviously, they have Chris Jones. He's in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, I believe. His pass rush win rate of 21% ranked first among defensive tackles. He wreaked havoc in the AFC Championship game. Do you think he's going to pose a problem for the Eagles' offensive line?
So I have a fun stat here. No, I don't. I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident that this is not. I mean, maybe he'll have a sack, maybe he'll get a couple pressures, but I don't think that he'll wreak havoc on this game. And I have a fun little stat because been a lot of talk about Chris Jones. Maybe he's the best defensive player in the NFL. Maybe he's taken over Donald's spot and all that stuff. Fun little fact: Javon Hargrave rushed the passer 432 times for the defensive tackle alignment this season, compared to 524 for Chris Jones. Hargrave had one more sack and 6 more pressures and 92 less snaps from D tackle than Chris Jones did. No one's talking about Javon Hargrave. Javon Hargrave might not be one of the first 5 names you'd mention on this Eagles defense. So to me, that denotes the difference between these two defensive lines. Sure, you've got a Christian, or what's the I think you're a bigger comic book guy than me. The Avengers, we have a Hulk. It's like, yeah, you have a Chris Jones, but we have 5 of them, basically. Like, we have 5 Chris Jones. So,
yeah,
not that's obviously reductive of Chris Jones. Chris Jones is a really good player, but I just think that you can devote a lot of resources to that because there's not exactly anyone else besides Karlaftis that scares me whatsoever. And Karlaftis hasn't been some ultra productive sack guy anyway. So I think that they have very good players on defense, but they are nowhere near as deep on defense as the Eagles are, especially on the D-line.
Yeah, and that's really stood out. If you've watched any of the Super Bowl media coverage, the media day stuff, and the Eagles have so many superstars that they can put at podiums. They've got Javon Hargrave, Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and that's just on defense. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, and the Chiefs have George Karlaftis at a podium. And and that's not reductive of George Karlaftis.
Yeah, you know how
both
you know how much I
in
love
the draft.
him. Yeah.
He was a top 10 player, I believe, on both of our boards.
I think he was like 5 for me.
Yeah, I could check that later, but you just look at these rosters and and we'll get into this later, but they're just nowhere near the same. And so Chris Jones, obviously he wrecked the Bengals game. He did it primarily rushing against the Bengals right tackle because La'el Collins was out. I've got news for you. If you want to rush against the Eagles right tackle, you are not going to make much headway. Lane Johnson, one of the best in the league. If you want to kick him out to left tackle against Jordan Mailata is good against power rushers. He struggles against speed guys, and Chris Jones is a defensive tackle who sometimes moonlights as an edge rusher. So you're going to rush him from the interior, where Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Seumalo is a really good group. I think you probably try to get him rushing on Seumalo and try to occupy Kelsey. But they like to rush, particularly they like to rush the passer with like a really wide 9 alignment. Their defensive tackles is like 4 techniques, and you can run all day on that. They can only get in that alignment if you're in 3rd and long. So if the Eagles stay ahead of the sticks, at least in neutral downs, I just don't think the Chiefs' pass rush is going to make a big impact. They're 15th in the league in team pass rush win rate. Their best player on the defensive line, on the defense as a whole, is at a place where the Eagles are perfectly equipped to handle him. And so I'm not saying Chris Jones will make no impact in the game, but I do think the Eagles are very well equipped to handle the biggest punch the Chiefs can throw on defense. And that's not true when we get to the Chiefs' offense against the Eagles' defense. They're not equipped to handle the Hassan Reddick punch at right tackle, but we'll get into that in a minute. So let me ask you this, Mark. Since Jalen Hurts has returned from injury, I'll give you a few stats for you here. Since returning from injury, he's 3 of 10 on deep passes. 2 of 10 if you counted the incorrect ruling on Devonta Smith's 4th and 3 as an incompletion. It wasn't technical. I mean, it was a catch. It shouldn't have been a catch. Whatever. Per Pro Football Reference, he has 5 games this season where he has had over 15% of his throws graded as bad throws, and it's the last 5 games he's played. Now, if you look at offensive success rate, they've been below league average 4 times this season, and 3 of those were in the last 4 games. And so there's twin schools of thought, and I'll let you pick your side here, but One school of thought is that there's something to the injury, balls coming out high, some inaccuracy downfield, maybe some chemistry issues, timing issues from not practicing, Devon or AJ Brown hamstring issue, whatever. It's just not there. Or is this just a small sample size and it's noise that comes from a Week 18 vanilla game plan and 2 blowout playoff performances where you really didn't need to do much?
Yeah, you know what camp I'm in, and it's very much the latter. I very much think that trying to make negative takeaways on the passing games in a 31-7 win and a 38-7 win, I think it's a fool's game in my opinion. I think that you're talking about something where game script very clearly dictated what happened in those games offensively. In my opinion, I think they would have taken more shots and Jalen would have had more chances to connect on big plays. And, ultimately it's such a small sample size, 24 passes in the first playoff game, 25 in the second. So we went 31 for 49 over the last 2 games. And we're really talking about 18 incompletions. And I think that's just such a small sample size. And I don't think you can make any sweeping generalizations about how healthy Jalen is. And by the way, this isn't me saying Jalen's 100% healthy, no doubt about it. I'm just saying that I guess I'm not interested in having that conversation because I don't think it's quantifiable. I don't necessarily know what his, and then also it's another thing where it's been 2 weeks now. Like it has been 2 weeks since they played a game and they obviously protected him very much outside of that one drive where they ran him a lot. And it seems like, and I actually heard this, I don't know, I almost want to hear, I heard it from maybe Brian Baldinger. I think he said that he thought that was just a message to whoever was in the Super Bowl. He thought that they were just putting that on tape just to show that they weren't afraid to run Hurts, and that it will be like the full menu with Hurts next week, to make KC or Cincy at that time prepare for it if they were to win the AFC Championship. So that is interesting. It's when they were doing that in the game, I was kind of like, "What's going on here? Why are we running Hurts every play?" But
that's interesting because I would almost argue you should do the opposite. You
so they're
should
not
only
ready
run.
for it. Yeah,
You should only run Hurts if you're. It's like that's kind of like the empty the playbook. Like the game where you're winning in a blowout is where you line up and do the onside kick that you don't actually want to do, but you want to put it on tape and make teams prepare for it, or the alternate look to the QB, the trick play, the double pass that you're never going to run in the Super Bowl, but you want to make people prepare for. Like I would almost think like if he's healthy and we want to run him, but we're in a blowout here, let's just not so teams think he can't. That's interesting though.
it is interesting. It almost makes you think the other way, which argues
Yeah.
against my thought process. But
Except that way, you would never just like run him if he's not
yeah, I
healthy
know,
because you can't run him in the Super Bowl. So I don't know. That it's weird.
it's an interesting thought, and I hadn't thought about it until I heard it. But yeah, that was definitely a weird drive. Like there's whatever something was going on there. Like whatever the case may be, there was definitely something strategically going on there because they were up like 28-7 when they did that, I think, or 21-7, whatever it was.
Hurts probably just was like calling audibles at the line. He's like, "Listen,
That
I
could,
can
it
run
could
the
be that.
ball, and you guys need to stop protecting me. We're here to win a Super Bowl." That's
It
honestly
could
what
be.
makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely could be the case.
So, okay, well, here's a couple defensive tendencies for the Chiefs that I'll throw out there, and then we can kind of pivot and talk about the Chiefs offense, Eagles defense. But in the regular season, the Chiefs blitz 28% of their snaps. Obviously, blitzing has given Hurts issues, more so zone blitzing than man blitzing, and the Chiefs are a high man coverage team at 32%. It was the 8th highest man cover rate in the NFL this season. So you man blitz Hurts, he just wants to make the guy miss and then run because everybody's back is to him, right? Zone blitzing has caused him more issues because eyes are on him. But the Chiefs have dropped their blitz rate from 28% to 14% in the postseason. Now, some of that may be a function of playing a Bengals offensive line that was so bad you didn't need to blitz. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't have a feel for if they're going to come out and blitz. I do think Spags is going to dial some things up here. They run nickel on 54% of their snaps, dime on 19%, and base personnel on 22% of their snaps. And they only stack the box on 15% of their snaps. That's dropped to 5% in the postseason. They have not stacked the box against teams. Now, they have not played a team that can run like the Eagles. and then they run middle of field open coverage. So two safeties over the top at the highest rate in the league, 51%. So again, I look at what they like to do tendency wise, and I just say it feels like this should be a big running game for the Eagles.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think specifically it's a big running game for Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be running the ball. I said it on the last pod, but I like his over at 49.5 rush yards. And even more so, I like the over at over 10.5 attempts and the anytime touchdown, obviously. But I think Jalen Hurts running, as I think that's obviously always going to be his scariest weapon to the defense. And I think that it's the Super Bowl and it's time to be guns blazing in the RPO offense and to not hold anything back. And I don't think they will. I think that this is going to be the fully weaponized version of Jalen Hurts' dual threat ability in this game.
All right. Anything else you want to say about Eagles offense before we start talking Chiefs offense versus Eagles defense?
Let me take a look here. At the stats. See if there's anything I'm missing. The pass defense ranks 28th in DVOA against running backs. I mentioned Gainwell. That's definitely something that I would watch out for. But you mentioned it on the last show, and I'm sure you have it somewhere built in here. But I think the red zone is going to decide this game. And specifically, I think Andy Reid's settling for fourth down field goals and settling for go for it situations where maybe Sirianni would go for it. They take the 3 points. And I really, in my heart of hearts, believe that's going to cost the Chiefs the Super Bowl, and it's going to win the Eagles the Super Bowl. The fourth down aggression, the red zone aggression, and the lack of it for Kansas City. And you look at the numbers, Kansas City's allowed a touchdown on 67.3% of opponent trips inside the 20-yard line. That is second worst in the NFL this season. On the other end, Philadelphia's offense scored touchdowns on 67.8% of red zone trips. That ranks third in the NFL. That's strength on weakness. There's not a lot of strength on weakness matchups in this in Super Bowl. There shouldn't be. But that is, in my opinion, the most glaring strength on weakness matchup in this entire Super Bowl. And I think it's going to be the deciding factor.
Yeah. So you mentioned red zone touchdown percentage. Games are won and lost in the red zone. If you look at the offenses, Kansas City ranks second in touchdown percentage. The Eagles rank third. It's kind of a wash. It's very close. But defensively, you mentioned it, the Chiefs' defense is 30th, while the Eagles is 11th. And so red zone plays a big key. And you mentioned the Reid factor. The Chiefs they're not a forward-thinking organization in terms of the analytics and go for it. The Eagles are so aggressive, and the Chiefs are not. And generally, over long periods of time, that always plays out in the favor of the aggressor. Now, in a one-game sample, maybe it doesn't, but you feel good about your odds there. You feel like Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen are going to push the right buttons, and you feel like the Chiefs might not. And so I agree with you. I think that's a huge underrated thing that people aren't talking about enough going into this game.
And something was, while staying on the Sirianni Reid conversation, and I guess this stretches to Hurts and Mahomes as well. But I found a couple stats about Super Bowl experience and how helpful that is, and for quarterbacks and coaching. So quarterbacks with Super Bowl experience facing a quarterback with no Super Bowl experience are only 19 and 15 in the 34 times that has happened in the Super Bowl. They're actually 16 and 18 against the spread. Then if you look at coaching experience in the Super Bowl truly does not matter. The coach that has more experience is 17 and 18 in the Super Bowl, 16 and 19 against the spread. And this is for this specific situation. When the coach has a 2+ Super Bowl experience gap, they are just 10 and 14 against a first-time head coach in the Super Bowl. So I think you'll hear a lot I heard it this morning on Good Morning Football. You'll hear a lot of word vomit about how Super Bowl experience is going to be so beneficial to the Chiefs and how it's huge for Mahomes, how it's huge for Andy Reid. I don't buy it. I don't think that it matters at all, to be quite honest. And if anything, I think there might even be a little bit more juice when you're there for the first time and when it's not become old hat a little bit to you like it has for Kansas City. And there's also an argument that Kansas City played a little bit of a Super Bowl last week with the way that their players reacted on the podium about Burrowhead. So I think that that's definitely something that I kind of raise my eyes at the experience stats there.
I would be fascinated to know why coaches that have been to two more Super Bowls lose the
Yeah.
game more often. Like, why? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well,
But
it's probably just as simple as their team's worse. Like most of the
yeah,
time, that's what it
yeah,
is.
that's
Like,
true.
yeah,
Which, by the way, the Chiefs team is worse, but we'll
yeah,
get into that in a minute.
exactly, exactly.
Um, on the experience thing, and I know you just said you don't think it matters a whole lot, and I'm not sure I disagree, but who would you say is the more experienced team? Like, this is the third Super Bowl in 4 years for the Chiefs, but they had 4,000 snaps from rookies, and the Eagles only had 900 this year. Like, I don't even know, honestly, I don't know who I would say is the more experienced team. The Eagles are a more veteran team. The Chiefs have been to three of the last four Super Bowls, but a quarter of their roster wasn't even on the team then. It's very interesting where the Eagles, despite having not been since 2017, and the Chiefs there three of the last 4 years, the Eagles feel like the more veteran team to me.
It's an entirely new secondary. It's an entirely new receiver room for Kansas City, an entirely new running back room, um, an entire new offensive line. I don't think any of these offensive linemen were on the team the last time they made the Super Bowl. Maybe Wiley. I know the other four are new. So you're talking about the Chiefs are mostly brand new. I'd actually be interested to look in how much Super Bowl experience they have. But you're really talking about Mahomes, Kelsey, and Andy. That's the same pieces, and even the defense. Like I don't know how long Chris Jones has been there a bit now. Frank Clark's been there a bit now, but like Tyrann Mathieu's gone. There's another corner that's slipping my brain that they had during that run who's gone. But yeah, a lot of the pieces that they had in those first couple Super Bowls are not there anymore.
So when the Chiefs made 2020 was when they made the Super Bowl last,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Their offensive line was Eric Fisher, Kalichi Osemele, Austin Reeder, Andrew Wiley, who was playing right guard at the time,
yeah.
and then Mitchell Schwartz. So one offensive lineman who's not playing the same position.
And by the way, all the talk about Super Bowl experience, should that even count as positive Super Bowl experience in 2020? They got their butts kicked. Like they were terrible in that game. And there were no fans there. It was like an entirely different experience too. Like
if you look at their offense, it's Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's not the starter anymore.
I don't think he'll even play. Yeah,
Let's wide receiver. They had Mecole Hardman,
he's not
Travis
playing.
Kelsey, and Andrew Wiley.
Yeah, it's Mahomes, Kelsey, Wiley because I don't think Clyde will play a role and Hardman's out.
Yeah. So you mentioned red zone. Let me bring up another one because games are won and lost in the red zone. They're won and lost with fourth down decision making. They're won and lost with turnovers, of which the Eagles commit very few. And they're won and lost on third downs. And if you look at the EPA per play on third downs, the Kansas City Chiefs EPA per play on third down ranks first in the league, while the Eagles are at fourth. So again, Chiefs are slightly better offensively. But when you look at defense, the Chiefs' defense is 14th in third down EPA. The Eagles is second. So it feels like to me there's a running theme that the Chiefs are slightly better on offense. The Eagles are worlds better on defense. And so we can use that here to transition
Real
and talk
quick,
about the Eagles' defense against the Chiefs' offense. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, just before we get there, I just wanted to throw this out there because I would forget if I didn't. Another interesting stat along the same lines, and what you just said, if that's the case, that lines up well for the Eagles if this stat holds true. Regular season scoring doesn't seem to matter in the Super Bowl since teams that scored more points per game during the regular season are just 6-14 in the last 20 Super Bowl games. Kansas City led the NFL in scoring this year at 29.2 points per game. But on the other hand, teams that allowed fewer points per game during the regular season have won the last 7 Super Bowls outright. Defense wins championships. It really is that simple.
There we go. So let's talk about that Eagles defense versus the Chiefs offense. Let's start off with the Chiefs running game, which isn't anything special in my opinion. Isaiah Pacheco, I think he was a 7th round pick, has sort of become their lead back. The Clyde Edwards-Helaire injury helped that along, but Pacheco has 830 yards rushing on the season, 5 touchdowns, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, each in the, close to 300 yards, couple of touchdowns. You get into the receiving game, which I guess that's more the passing game. Jerick McKinnon makes a big impact. He single-handedly saved my fantasy season when I drafted this is not a fantasy football podcast, but I was really high on Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, and I drafted them to be my running backs, and they were both awesome, and they both got hurt. And I had no running backs, and entered Jerick McKinnon, who saved my season. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire was activated from IR today, and I believe Mecole Hardman went to IR, so they're going to swap spots. I don't expect Helaire to play a lot in this game. I think he's running back 3.
Please play him. He stinks.
Yeah. Please play him. He's not any good. I think he's an emergency running back 3, but Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon. Pacheco is a very tough runner. He will run through you. The Eagles will have to tackle well. But the guy that really scares me is Jerick McKinnon when we get into the passing game. But do you think the Chiefs, will have success running on the Eagles in this game?
Relatively. I mean, the way that our scheme is based is not a shut down the run scheme. So they'll probably run for 4 yards per carry, like around that. I mean, maybe Pacheco has like 15 for 60. I think that's probably a pretty fair. I wonder what his number is. It's probably like 45 and a half or something like that. That'd probably be my guess. They run for 4 yards per carry, but they don't really break anything more than 10 to 15 yards, which if that's the case, you probably take that. I think you're right, though. It's not the running game, but the running back I'm concerned about is Jerick McKinnon in the passing game. I think he had like 900 receiving yards this year. I saw the number a couple days ago, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty high. Not that I didn't know that. I know the last like 6 regular season weeks, he scored 10 touchdowns, and he became such a huge part of that offense. And I think I said it on this show. He almost brings to them a little bit of what Kareem Hunt brought to their passing game when he was a rookie and a second-year player in Kansas City in I think the last Alex Smith year and the first or second Mahomes year. They haven't had that since then. And McKinnon, a little inconsistent in the playoffs, but has seemed to have given them that. The one thing I will say is it seems like McKinnon was incredibly good when Mahomes was improving in the backfield. It seems like McKinnon was able to find soft zones, and McKinnon was able to find spots that he could break free from his coverage for Mahomes scrambling around the pocket to find him on one of these crazy 30-yard sidearm in the back of the end zone plays that we see so much with Mahomes. I don't think we see that as much with Mahomes' injury. So obviously there's been 2 weeks. Maybe he comes out and looks, perfect for all we know. But I don't think you see a lot of Mahomes scrambling. And I do think that might cut down on how dangerous McKinnon is, because I do think it was pretty evident that I think half of his touchdowns were broken plays down the stretch. So I think he's a really dangerous player when a play breaks.
Yeah, he had 9 receiving touchdowns, Jerick McKinnon.
Mm-hmm.
He had 512 receiving yards in the regular season. So
okay, that's way lower.
512 receiving yards. How many yards after catch do you think he had?
Probably like 4 something, yeah.
541.
Yeah.
He had more yards after catch than actual yards. So his average depth of target was behind the line of scrimmage.
That's insane.
That's insane to me.
That's insane.
Let me throw you this one on the Eagles' run defense. So Eagles' run defense was notably bad at the start of the year, right? So the first 10 weeks of the season culminating in the Washington loss. What do you think the Eagles ranked EPA per play against the run?
Probably second or third.
Well, so it's
you're
27th.
Saying...
So they were the 27th best, which I guess would be like the 5th worst. However you want to parse that.
Okay, so you're saying overall or that first 10 weeks?
The first 10 weeks,
yeah.
Again, their rush defense, EPA per rush, was 27th.
So I thought you were asking after that. So what was it after week 10?
6th.
Yeah, I guess second or third. Yeah, I knew that it was a lot better, yeah.
And similar for success rate went from 30th to also 6th.
Yeah.
So don't, negate the fact that Howie Roseman was like, oh my gosh, we lost 1 game. I'm going to go sign Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph to anchor this pass rush. Now, I do think there's something to be said for I don't mind if the Chiefs run the football. because
Yeah.
anytime that they stick the ball in the belly of a back, it is no longer in Patrick Mahomes'
Yep.
hands. So I would not play a 5-man front in this game at any point in time unless you're down and the Chiefs are trying to kill clock. Like, if you want to run the ball for 4 yards per carry and try to go on 15 play drives, be my guest. We will slow the game down. We will let you run the football. I would love to see that. So I don't think the Eagles are going to like sell out to stop the run. I think it would be kind of stupid if they did, to be honest. So that's kind of what I had on the run game. Do you have anything else you want to say on run game, run defense before we move on to the real bread and butter, which is the Chiefs passing attack?
No, and I can just start it off by saying the passing attack, the X factors, Andrew Wiley and Orlando Brown, because I don't think you're getting after the interior offensive line for Kansas City. So it's on Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, and Brandon Graham. This game pretty much entirely in terms of the defense versus offense to me relies on those three guys.
Yeah, absolutely. The Chiefs' interior offensive line, Creed Humphrey, Joe Tooney, Trey Smith, phenomenal players, allowed 3 sacks combined all season. The edges are a little more susceptible, though. Orlando Brown, big name. He's struggled at times this year. I think Josh Sweat can get after him. And then Andrew Wiley on the right side. And he's interesting because, I kind of look at the metrics before I go to the tape, just so I know what I'm getting into. And he's 9th in ESPN's pass block win rate among offensive tackles. So that, okay, he's pretty good. And then I put on the tape, and I realized that Andrew Wiley wins the majority of his reps. And when he loses incredibly fast, and it has a very negative impact. He's given up 9 sacks, 53 pressures, 9 penalties. He's going to be matched up with Hassan Reddick, who, when he wins incredibly fast and attacks the arm of the quarterback and makes high-impact plays. And so that's going to be the huge thing to me, is if that pass rush is able to get home and if they're able to finish. PFF has a pressure to sack ratio. What percentage of your pressures turn into sacks? Patrick Mahomes only takes a sack on 10.5% of the plays in which he's pressured, which is the best in the league. And so it's going to be huge, not just to get pressure, but to finish. And I think you can do that. Patrick Mahomes' time to throw for the year was 2.89 seconds. It was 2.94 against Cincinnati. And the Chiefs have the highest early down pass rate in the NFL. So the Eagles' mantra all season has been you have to earn the right to rush the passer. Against the Chiefs, you're rushing the passer on first down. I think you're going to be able to see the Eagles pin their ears back and get after Mahomes. On 1st and 10, you don't have to get into 3rd and 8. The Chiefs are going to pass early. They don't want to run the football.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like we said already, please run the football. I am begging you to run the football and take the ball out of your hands of the best quarterback in the world. You mentioned the 10.5% number there. He's been sacked on just 3.9% of the pass plays in general this season, which is the 3rd lowest rate among quarterbacks. I don't know if you're able to break this game with the pass rush, but I do think you can get a couple big key plays. And I said this already on the last pod. I don't think you're holding Mahomes under 24. I think in most likelihood, you're not holding him under 28. But what you have to do is you have to hold them under 30. You have to hold them under 31. You have to hold them under whatever an added touchdown is onto whatever they're going to score. Because I do think it's going to be a close game. I do think it's going to be a shootout. And I do think in those situations, we saw it in the Patriots Super Bowl. The defense was bad in that game. Tom Brady played maybe the best game of his career in that game. Like, you can make that argument. At least he definitely played the best Super Bowl of his career in that game. But who cares about that? We don't remember that. What we remember is Brandon Graham's script pass. Well, that's true too. That's true. I was talking to someone about that. Like, I think that's going to be the part that gets lost to history. I think, like, the Philly special has endured history in a way that I don't even think I thought it would 5 years ago. It is just like on the tip of everyone's tongue and so many highlights. Even when the Eagles aren't in the Super Bowl, like it's still a talked about thing. And when someone runs a trick play like that in high school, it's the Philly special. Even if it's not the exact same play, it's now just universally called Philly special on whatever. But I think it's going to be forgotten to history that they ran that play after Tom Brady dropped the pass in the same game. Like, I think that is so funny that like Doug watched Tom drop a pass and he's like, you know what? Nick won't drop it. Like we'll run it anyway. I think people will forget about that part of that play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the last podcast, Birds of the Round Table, for those of you listening, it's a weekly Tuesday night Eagles Roundtable podcast. It is not on podcasting apps, but it is on the YouTube, mine, the Painted Lines, Edge of Philly Sports, wherever you're watching this. And we do a Eagles Madden watch party while we break down the game every week with some other hosts. So you can always check that out if you would like just a little different flavor. Yeah, what a game, by the way. No spoilers, but the Super Bowl was incredible in that podcast. But I think you mentioned it, the sack percentage for the Eagles. Was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, it's a crazy stat. They sacked opposing quarterbacks on 11.5% of their pass plays, which is the highest mark of any defense since at least 2000, which I believe dates back to the 2000 Ravens is who that is dating back to. The difference in sack rate between the Eagles and the number 2 Patriots this season was the same as the difference between the number 2 Patriots and the number 29 Bengals. So that is a staggering number there. And here's another one. I don't think I even brought this up on the last pod. Their sack rate actually increases when they rushed 4 or fewer defenders. It goes from 11.5% to 11.8%, which is just an insane stat.
But
8 total sacks.
Jonathan Gannon should blitz more. Am I right? That's what everybody said on Twitter.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is like the Gannon stuff. I've always been a blitz hater. Like I hate blitzing, like because I just think you're opening yourself up to so many things that if you just have the personnel, you don't have to. And I've always felt like that. But it's funny that I am not like the biggest Jonathan Gannon defender of all time. Then, like, it's something where I should have been defending him these last 2 years. I think my issue with Gannon comes more in the secondary and the way that we play off the ball, but it goes hand in hand. I understand it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The Gannon hate at this point. If you're still hating Gannon after he drove up on Broad Street and rolled down the window and said, "We're going to gut these guys," then you just don't realize how Philly this guy actually is.
Yeah. So we talked about the pass rush for the Eagles and the Chiefs offensive line. This is where Jerick McKinnon becomes a big threat out of the backfield, I think. If you want to neutralize a pass rush, the ball's got to come out quick. And Mahomes is very capable of doing that when he needs to. And Andy Reid is very capable of designing an incredible screen game that takes the teeth out of a pass rush. If you can get the Eagles guessing, did I beat my offensive lineman or did he let me go? You've got him in a place you want to be. So McKinnon out of the backfield as a release valve, as a screen guy, that's a big concern for me when the Chiefs are on the field. It's going to be really important for me that TJ Edwards, Kazir White, that they do a good job of sniffing those screens out and are able to rally and make tackles because that is an underrated, very dangerous element of this Chiefs offense.
They are going to screen us to death. I would say like there's going to be at least 5 screenplays from Kansas City in this game, if not way more, whether that be to Kelsey, whether that be to McKinnon, Pacheco, or receiver. I think they're going to mix it up. They're going to throw so many screen looks, and that's the way you probably should try to beat this Gannon defense, and that's the only way you probably can get a big play against this Gannon defense. I don't think you're going to get it by a 40-yard shot play. I think that's going to be exactly what Kansas City does, and I think that's the next place to go is Kelsey. We have to talk about the Kelsey Bowl. And Travis Kelce. By the way, love Jason Kelsey. Love the New Heights pod. Maybe I'm just listening to way too much football content. I get it. They're brothers. I'm good. I'm at the point this week where I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't want to hear about the Kelsey Bowl
anymore. They even said on the podcast to stop calling it the Kelsey Bowl.
I know. So it's not their fault at all. Like yeah. And you know what? Like, who am I to blame the media? This is such an insane. It is incredible. Even though I'm annoyed about it, I'm willing to begrudgingly admit that it's pretty incredible that there's brothers that are probably the best player at their own respective positions in the last 20 years, and they're going against each other in the Super Bowl for a coach who drafted both of them. There's some cool aspects there, but I don't need the 20-minute segment every single NFL show about the Super Bowl. We can talk about the actual game. That's
Yeah.
me being a nerd. But
Hey,
speaking of the
there are
actual
worse
game,
things media could talk about. I mean, you could
yeah.
ask a coach if the
Oh,
Super Bowl was a must-win game, or you could ask a coach which one of his 30-year-old
oh,
players he would let date his 5-year-old daughter. I mean, there's way worse things we could be asking and talking about in the media, I guess. But you have to be a nationally credentialed reporter to ask moronic questions like that. Guys with just a podcast, we don't talk about that stuff.
the Super Bowl media day is one of the biggest farces of all time. The questions that we're getting asked, it's terrible. I feel bad for the guys for having to sit through that nonsense.
So yeah, you mentioned Travis Kelsey. Kelsey between the numbers specifically is huge to watch. 60% of his yards this season have come between the numbers and under 20 yards. And I think you see a little bit of the quarterback background with Kelsey that he will there will be a route called and he reads the coverage out and knows it's not going to be open and he will break it off, and he and Mahomes, they just have a chemistry and they can do that. Now they'll be off sometimes and you'll see that, but more often than not it works really well. And he's so good at finding spots in zones over the middle of the field, which is a problem for the Eagles who play zones over the middle of the field. And then on crossing routes, he's got 17.2 yards per reception on crossing routes. So crossing routes over the middle of the field, that's the big thing, in my opinion, to worry about with Travis Kelsey.
Yeah, Travis Kelsey's obviously the X factor of this entire game for the Chiefs. And I think if you're the Eagles, you have to come into this game defensively with basically one thing in mind, which is not letting Travis Kelsey beat you. Because if Travis, you can live with basically anything else. You can't live with giving up 14 catches for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns to Travis Kelsey, and that's why you lost the game. You've had 2 weeks to prepare. You have to come up with a wrinkle. You have to come up with something, some sort of way to contain him, to limit him. Maybe you don't shut him down, but you at least have to come up with a way to shut him down on third downs and to neutralize him to the best of your ability. And I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to say, you know what? We think your receivers stink. Try to beat us with Juju. Try to beat us with Tony. Try to beat us with Sky Moore. I think that they are going to double Travis Kelsey at times. They're going to bracket Travis Kelsey at times. And they're going to – I just think that you have to do whatever you possibly can to try to slow him down.
Yeah, absolutely. And how you do that, it's hard to have a plan for, because they will line Kelsey up in the backfield. They will line him up in the slot, in line, out at the boundary, isolated receiver. They will motion him to get him free releases. I think you do want to try to be physical with him at the line of scrimmage as much as you can, which is not something that is the Eagles' defensive MO. But I think you're going to see that in this game. I saw a lot of things that Jonathan Gannon did in the 49ers game that was very scheme specific to the 49ers. I think we're going to see that in this game. So it's crazy to me. Like, everybody expected the Chiefs offense to take a step back this year. You lose Tyreek Hill, and it didn't. Like, their EPA per play went from .167 last year to .201 this year. That's a 20% increase. Like, they literally lost the most explosive receiver in the NFL, and they had a better offense. They had more explosive plays this year than either of the last 2 years. Despite Mahomes' average depth of target being lower, they have more yards after the catch this season than any team in the last 20 years. And so it's that screen game, it's Kelsey, it's all of that design stuff, and the Eagles have got to suss that out. They've got to tackle well. That's going to be a huge key in this game.
Yeah, tackling is definitely going to be huge, especially in the run game with Pacheco. So, yeah, I it's been 2 shows of me talking, and I'm starting to talk myself into feeling confident, which is a bad thing because I shouldn't, because it's Patrick Mahomes. But it really does feel like you can't be afraid of anyone else on this Chiefs offense other than Kelsey and obviously Mahomes, but that goes without saying. Yeah, I don't know why I just had that realization. That was weird. I just had a weird little moment live on the air where I had a sense of confidence wave over me about the Eagles defense. But that's obviously, if you're confident in the Eagles, it's because of the Eagles defense, and it's because of the Eagles pass rush, and it's because of the Eagles depth as a defense. So, maybe I should just start saying the Eagles are going to win by 3 touchdowns.
Well, I don't think I would encourage you to say that. So, Patrick Mahomes has started 93 games in his career for the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have either led the game or been within one score in the fourth quarter in 90 of the 93 games. Mark, can you guess the 3 games? You can get one for sure. The other 2 I doubt you get. But
the Tampa Super Bowl,
yeah.
The Patriots AFC Championship.
No, the other 2 were both regular season games. It was 2021 week 5 and week 7. They had a little rough stretch against the Bills and the Titans.
The Bills,
so
that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't blow the Chiefs out. The Chiefs are going to be in a game. They're going to be in it to the end, and they're going to have a shot. And so I feel good about these matchups. There's no point in this game I would be comfortable. If the Eagles are up 17 with 8 minutes left, I will be sweating bullets about this game. And I don't expect that to happen because I expect this to be a close game down to the wire.
Mahomes is 74-19, I think it is, as a quarterback, which is just that win-loss record will never be touched in terms of the first 92 games of someone's NFL career, 93, whatever it is, of someone's NFL career. No one will ever win 74 of them. That is just such an absurd stat, and I don't think it gets talked about enough. But yeah, he is. Yeah, that's always going to be kind of the thing that I come back to anytime I do get a little bit confident in the Eagles is, you should never feel confident against Patrick Mahomes. He's the best player to ever play the sport and obviously the best quarterback to play the sport. But the Eagles have the better roster pretty much everywhere else, and besides the tight end.
Another fun stat is if you want to compare the quarterbacks, in EPA per play plus completion percentage over expectation, Patrick Mahomes ranks first. Jalen Hurts ranks second. In EPA per play, Mahomes ranks first. Jalen Hurts ranks second. Like, it's a battle. It's a clash of titans. And you talked about the rosters. This feels like a clash of styles, right? The Eagles are better at every position except quarterback and tight end. The Chiefs have the quarterback that every franchise wants, and they're paying him $500 million just like every franchise would be happy to, and it comes at some costs. You have to trade Tyreek Hill. You lose guys in free agency, and that's why the Eagles have a better roster top to bottom. The Eagles have the roster that every team wants. You can't have the quarterback and the roster unless the quarterback's on a rookie deal, and so we see kind of a play out in philosophies here. The rookie quarterback window and the roster that comes with it. It is the best quarterback to ever play the game, in both of our opinions, against the Eagles roster that is too good to fail. And what I come back to as I look at this game is Hurts did not play his best game in the NFC Championship game. I would argue that was one of his worst games of the season, and the Eagles rolled the 49ers. Mahomes played on top of his game, and it was barely enough to get by the Bengals. And yeah, there's quarterback differences in who they were playing against. There's also reasons for that. Mahomes has to play at an elite level in this game for the Chiefs to have a chance. Jalen Hurts can play a B-level game, and the Eagles can be fine. And that gives me some comfort too. The margins are bigger for the Eagles than they are for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean that goes without saying with the roster that they have and with how deep the roster is, and with how many looks they can throw at you defensively, with obviously the numbers game that we've talked about so many times on offense. So, are we near the score prediction time? I guess
we are. Lay it on me, Mark. Well, give me your score prediction. How is this game gonna go?
I've got 31-30. I've got the Chiefs scoring to go up 30-28 with 2 or 3 minutes left. And I have Jalen leading us down the field for like a 40, 45-yard Jake Elliott field goal. And I think that'll be set up by a Jalen Hurts run that will go down in Philadelphia lore as, his moment, as his play. Some little 20-yard run from the 50 to the 30 that puts us in field goal range or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I think that it's going to be really close, and I think it's going to come down to the very last minute. And I just have this weird feeling that it's coming on a game winner. I don't know if that's a touchdown with a couple minutes left. I don't know if that's a field goal as time expires. I don't know if it's a touchdown with 20 seconds left, whatever the case may be. I think there will be a game-winning play from the Eagles in this game.
All right. I got to ask you, when the Chiefs score to go up 30-28, are they kicking an extra point to go up by 2 instead of going for 2 to get up by 3?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Are we talking after this game about Andy Reid bungling a should have gone for 2 situation?
No, you know what? I'm actually going to correct myself. I'm going to say it's 28-27 and the Chiefs kick a field goal that maybe they should have went for it on a 4th and 3 on like the 25. They kick a field goal to go up 2, leave us too much time, we go down. That's so specific, but whatever.
That would be a nice flip the script if Jalen Hurts is the one who's left too much time instead of Patrick Mahomes, as we've seen so many times.
Yeah.
So I would love that. I would take like 3 years off of my life watching that. I prefer if the Eagles just win 38-7. Let's just keep the bit alive. To be honest, run the Philly special. Get Jason Kelsey a touchdown so he scores more than Travis Kelsey. Like, let's do all the things because this game's over at halftime. But that's not going to happen. It's going to be a great game all the way through. I really do think it's going to be a great game. I'm taking Eagles 31-27. I have more confidence in the Eagles coaching staff. I have more confidence in their roster. And though I don't have more confidence in their quarterback, because let's be honest, that would be absurd. Their quarterback does not have to play his best game to win this game, and Patrick Mahomes does. I don't know if Mahomes can do that against this pass rush, against this defense. So I think a lot of points are going to be scored. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's the type of game where kicking a field goal, getting that key sack to get off the field is going to decide this game. Like, it's going to feel like you're out of this game if you get down 10 points. So I say Eagles 31-27. That's my final score prediction.
Yeah, we have a comment from Swope. I appreciate him for commenting. But Eagles will not win if it's high scoring. Definitely no chance to win a high scoring game. Yeah, the number 2 offense in DVOA has no chance to win a high scoring game. I disagree with that a lot. I think that they can absolutely win any type of game. I think that they've shown that for the entire season. But
I think you could make an argument that a high scoring game would favor the Eagles because the Eagles have a much better defense, and so it would give a shot. You know, the more possessions there are, the more chance there is for your defense to get that big play.
Yep.
But you can also just flip that script and say you'd love to play Eagles brand of football and keep the hit ball out of Mahomes' hand and pound the rock and play good defense. And so I don't think there's an unfavorable game script for the Eagles, and unless they get behind. And then they have to start airing it out and abandon the running game. But you'd have to be behind by quite a bit to abandon the run early in the game, and I don't think that's going to happen.
And I've got a couple gambling reasons as to why the Chiefs are not going to win this game. Obviously, I don't know if you know this, but the Eagles opened as a 2-point underdog in this game, and that quickly changed. The bettors came in and hammered the Eagles to the point where they are now a 1.5-point favorite. In 18 times that the Super Bowl line has moved more than 1.5 points, the team that the line moves in favor of is 16-2 outright. And the favored team has won 36 of the 56 Super Bowls. Also, another reason here, the Chiefs are the worst against the spread team in Super Bowl history. In the 56-year history of the Super Bowl, no team has won the Super Bowl with less than a 40% against the spread win percentage entering the playoffs. The Chiefs have a 35% cover rate. They're actually the worst against the spread team to ever even make the Super Bowl. The 3 previous teams who appeared in the Super Bowl with a cover rate below 40% all lost by at least 10 points. Just a fun little fact.
Good teams win, great teams cover.
Exactly right, Shane. Exactly right.
All right, well, Mark, you're the gambling expert here. Do you have any other prop bets or any other gambling takes you want to fire off here?
Yeah, I won't give the reason behind them because I don't want to take up too much time. We have done like 2.5 hours of podcasting now, so there's a lot of voice of mine to be heard, and I think I gave the reason on the last show. But my favorite ones are -115 for the Chiefs to call the first time out. A lifetime of watching Andy Reid has prepared me for that. I like the Eagles team total over 25.5. I think that they've done it in 6 of their last 9 games. And I like Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. There are other ones. Actually, I'll throw this one out there since we didn't talk about this one on either. I like Quez under 1.5 catches, and I like Quez Watkins under 13.5 yards. His snaps went up in the NFC Championship game from the Giants game, so he was not as phased out of the offense, but I still don't think he was anything that they were game planning for. I don't think that he will be a big part of the game plan this week. I think it's going to be Brown, Smith, Goddard, Gainwell, well before we get to the Quezes of the world.
All right. Well, I think that is going to about wrap up our Super Bowl preview show. Mark, I just gave you the floor for some gambling takes, but do you have any other final thoughts that you want to get out there? Anything you want to plug? The floor is yours, my friend.
Thursday, I will be all over Fox Sports The Gambler on iHeartRadio. I'm always there on Saturday, 11 to 1, the Talk of a Radio show. But Thursday, we have something called the Prop Bowl. Sean Brace, John Jansen, Victor Williams might even be there, to be honest. I know he was on their Super Bowl thing today. He does a lot of stuff with The Gambler. That's Shane's co-host on the EPA. He might be there. Mark Drumheller will be there. A lot of the contributors from The Gambler who do things from a gambling perspective will be there to talk about some of the props that I just gave out. So those will be some of the stuff that we talk about. But Thursday, I'll be on at 5:30 with Sean Brace on the Daily Ticket. And then from 7 to 9 on the Prop Bowl. I think that's all I got, though.
All right. For my final thought here, I'll address one more comment here from Swope. Talking about the Chiefs will go up tempo, won't let the Eagles get off the field or sub, so they'll tire out their pass rush. I just don't think that's true. The Chiefs were dead last in the league in no huddle rate this season. It's just not something that they do very much. Mm-hmm. And even if they were to do that, the Eagles, you do that to tire out pass rushers. It doesn't necessarily work if the next drive you can stick in a whole new defensive line. And so I don't think there's much chance of that particular thing happening. Now, they may try to go more tempo, but it's not going to result in the Eagles pass rush getting gassed. I just don't see that happening.
And a penalty or an incompletion completely ruin that strategy. So, will they try to do that? Maybe. I don't even think the Eagles are the team I would try to do that against, really, because they have so many options. I get that the point is to not let them get the options in there. But like you said, they can just do it the next drive. So it's not that that's not too big of a factor for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mark, we did it. This is the ever elusive our podcast. We've talked about it for years. It just took the Eagles making a Super Bowl and us having one game to talk about to get there. So for my final,
I think we took longer previewing Rams Bengals last year.
I'd have to go back and look. We might have. For my final thoughts, I will just mention I've got a couple cool projects coming down the pipe that I'll be announcing on Chalk Talk shortly. Some draft stuff, some other things. So you guys be on the lookout for that. I'll tweet it out. I'll talk about it on Chalk Talk. Chalk Talk is not going anywhere. Mark and I will be here throughout the off season talking draft, talking NFL storylines, doing all kinds of ridiculous creative content like drafting all under 25 teams, all that sort of stuff. So we'll be with you guys through the off season. Keep it tuned here. Chalk Talk is out on all podcasting platforms now except for Google Podcast because it's garbage, but should be out there in the next couple of weeks. If you encounter an issue with one of the feeds, please let me know so I can get that corrected. I had somebody reach out and tell me that on Podbean, the feed was not working right, and I would have never noticed that, but I was able to get that fixed. So you guys let me know if you see that. And thank you all for joining us for episode 92 of Chalk Talk. Appreciate you guys that dropped into the comments, those of you watching on YouTube later or listening on podcasting platforms. If you enjoy what you heard on the show, and we know that you do, be sure you smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Drop us a 5-star rating and review. That helps us get it out there to other people. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at @halfandhalf_TPL. He is at Mark Henry Jr. So from me, from Mark, from the Painted Lines, we will see you guys next time on a Super Bowl victory celebration show. Go Birds.